So let me share my screen first. So I am Priya. I am working as a developer in ThoughtWorks, and almost for more than 3 years, I am working with some or other way to microservice architecture, and for some time, I have also worked to breaking down monolithic into microservices. So in this session, I will try to cover all the different strategy which we can take while breaking our monolithic to microservice. So let's start with the session. I hope everyone is able to see my screen, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. So first, let's try to understand what is monolithic architecture. So monolithic architecture is a design pattern in software development where we have single code base, single build system, and single executable binary with multiple modules. When I'm saying multiple modules, means we have a big code which have different services which can be across domain or which can be technically different features but is wrapped as a single application and will be wrapped as a single jar or war. And this whole application will be deployed as a single application which will share same memory, same compute resource and network resource. So this is what is monolithic architecture. So if you see in the example, we have this monolithic application which have lots of services, repository and one single database which have different type of implementation for web client, IoT or mobile client. So this architecture itself brings lots of benefits as well as there are some drawbacks as well. So let's try to understand what is benefits and drawbacks of monolithic architecture. So let's first see what is benefits of monolithic architecture. So first is fewer cross-cutting concerns. So cross-cutting concerns like logging, monitoring, external configuration. So those points will be minimal because we have all the services as a single application. So if you see in this diagram, in single WAR file, which is a big fat application, have multiple services: storefront, account servicing, inventory service, and shipping services. These all services are deployed as a single WAR file on the one server. I mean, we can obviously deploy on multiple servers, but so in this case, we will have fewer cross-cutting concerns. We don't have to worry much about uh, considering cross-cutting concerns for each services because this is single application. Then service to service communication will be easy. So when I'm trying to communicate from storefront UI to account service, because this is in same server or same application, it is available in the same JVM. So communication will be easy. There is no service discovery. There is no hop from one network to other network. So service communication is easy. And development, because we have only one repository, so development is also easy. Along with development, deployment and testing will be also easy because I have one single application which I have to develop and I have to deploy only one application. And from testing point of view, when we are testing a storefront UI or account service, accounting service, we don't have to mock other services. We can directly connect to any services within the single application and we can do the testing. So testing is also simple. But with these benefits, there are also some drawbacks in monolithic architecture. So first is all the services are at same places in the same application. So they are tightly coupled. They don't have their own domain. And if any new joinee comes our project, it is difficult to understand because now our application does not have a single responsibility. One application is doing multiple things. And even if we have multiple services, there might be some point where our services are calling each other in very messy way. So I would request everyone to be on mute, please. So it makes our application difficult to understand. And agility will be also difficult or limited if we want to move one feature out of our monolithic application, or we want to add some new feature. Because of the size of monolithic, because it is too big, it is difficult or limited. And there is also barrier for new technology. So for example, let's consider in this our application we want to add a new feature, and during an analysis phase we identify that that feature can be easily developed into Python, but right now my application is in Java. So it is not now easy to move my application to Python or integrate Python into this particular code. Or I mean, this is just a hypothetical example. So in this way, monolithic architecture is also a barrier for new technologies. And with, sorry, my bad. Yeah, so with growing code, our executable time will be also increased, which is barrier for CI/CD. Our continuous integration will be continuous integration time will be increased. So when I started my monolithic, so for example, time for creating my executable was 2 minutes. Now I have added lots of features, and now time has increased from 2 minutes to 20 minutes. So that is barrier for our CI/CD. And with it, as our application size is growing, team efficiency will be decreasing, because adding any single line of code can have impact at multiple places. So it will also impact our team efficiency. And there will be poor reliability. Adding any feature or by mistake introducing any bug might be cause our application failure as well. So for example, if due to any reason my database is down, or there is some new feature which I have added, which is taking lock on my database, then whole application will be impacted. So it's not like any single feature is impacted, whole application will be impacted. So these are some of the drawbacks which we get in monolithic architecture. And these almost all the concerns will be addressed into microservice architecture. So let's try to see what is microservice architecture. So microservice is a small independently deployable service that works together and model around a business domain. So in microservice architecture, business domain is very important. So our all services should be modeled around a business domain. When I'm saying small doesn't have any fixed size. So it's not like my code should have 10 classes or 20 classes. Small is relative to our business domain. So for organization A, when I'm doing some development for one business domain, it might have some 10,000 line of code. That is small for that organization. However, for some other organization, for different business domain, size of code or size of our microservice can vary. So small means it will be related to our business domain. It's not like any fixed size, but our microservice should be independently deployable. For deployment, it should not be dependent on any kind of service. However, it will work together as a different service. So with microservice architecture, so everything comes with its own cost, right? So it's not like with microservice architecture, we don't have any challenge or any cons. So let's see what are some benefits which we achieve in microservice architecture and some of the challenges which we face. So first of all, technology heterogeneity, which in monolithic we saw that it is very difficult to introduce some new technology. However, in microservice, we have n number of small services. So each microservice team is now independent to choose their technology stack trace. All the components are isolated because they are around a business domain. So they are isolated and they are not dependent on each other. Scaling is easier. So scaling is something I will cover in upcoming slides. But for the timing, let's understand what is the scaling. So for the time, let's try to understand. So now, like for on peak day, the request which comes to a particular microservice increased by 10 times. So on that particular day, we have to make our application scalable. So scalability can be achieved into microservices very easily. And each microservice is around a business context. So microservice have a single responsibility. So they will be product focused component. Now the resiliency is increased. So if one of the microservices failed due to any reason, so let's take example here. So microservice 1 and microservice 2. So there is any bug in microservice 2 and there is some error, it is not coming up. So in that case, still our whole application is running. Only the microservice 2 feature will be impacted. So resiliency will be increased. Along with it, our services are reusable. So now each microservice is a small component and it can be used by some different components. So for example, like we have login service, right? So most of application have login. So in an organization, let's consider there are 100 microservice, but each microservice needs login module. So login can be a different microservice which can be used by all of the services. So reusability is high in microservice. But microservice architecture comes with its own challenges as well. So first challenge, communication between services complex. Now our services are around our services are around bounded context. So they are for different domain. So now they are not allowed to communicate directly to each other. So service to service communication is now complex. So either we have to implement service discovery or some kind of gateway through which we can communicate one service to some other services. Higher operational overhead. Now we have n number of microservices. We have to take care n number of microservices. Now we have to monitor n number of microservices. So operational overhead will be increased. Debugging problems can be harder. So in monolithic, if there is any failure in our application, we know that where it can fail or what new features we have added with which can cause problem. But with microservice, because each team is independent, team A is not aware what new features team B is releasing, which can have impact on team A. So debugging problem can be harder, though we have some tool in place with microservice architecture, which we still can use that to identify that which service is failing, but that will take some time. So that's why debugging problems can be harder. Then next is large versus small product companies. So this is an interesting point. So microservice architecture comes with higher costs. So this is not recommended for startups or small product company. Unless you have defined your domain, you should not go for microservice architecture, because startup and small companies are still growing. They don't have their domain yet decided. So in those cases, if we go for microservice architecture, we will end up with some different kind of problems. So that's why microservice architecture is normally advisable for large organizations which have their confined domain. Next is complicated global testing. Now, in monolithic, we have n services which are in our control. So we were able to do all kind of testing. But in microservices, we don't have the services. So there are some different ways of doing testing, and global testing is now difficult. So it's not like it is not achievable, it is difficult. And security threats. Now, so for example, in monolithic, we have some module which required login. So only on that layer we were doing login and all the encryption, decryption thing. Now we have to take care of security on each microservice. So each microservice should be secured, and each microservice should communicate in secured manner. So that's why security is a big challenge in microservice architecture. So these are some of the pros and cons. So I think I'll take a pause. I'll take some questions if we have.
Yeah, so regarding the security, can you just give some example how it can be a security, the con can be a security threat? I didn't get it completely.
Okay, so when we are okay, so assume that you have two different domains and you are trying to communicate from one domain to other domain. Okay, so when we are trying to communicate from one domain to other domain, each layer we have to make make secure calls. Otherwise, we will be exposing domain 2 to domain 1. So that's why we are saying that in microservice, while communicating to different services, the communication should be in secured manner. So if you see in normally like I'll tell in this example. So if storefront UI, so if there is some JSON token and all which is authenticated on the in this application, then for storefront UI account service, you don't have to validate those things on each layer. Once it is validated, it should be able to access all the services. If unless there is service to service authentication is required. However, in microservice, you have to authenticate on each layer, on each service. So that's why we are saying that security is something that we have to take care whenever we are doing microservices communication.
So are you talking about cross origin resource sharing, cross kind of thing? When you say the domain, across domain calls are there.
Yes. So micro.
Okay. Okay.
Any other question?
What do you mean by business domain? Is it mean that you are talking about e-commerce domain or a specific finance domain? What do you mean? How do you differentiate between small or big?
Okay. So domain is something is which is very much related to your business, in which business you are, and business people talks in which language. So that whole concepts come from domain driven design. So it's not like finance. In finance itself, there are multiple domains. So in finance, if you go, there are payment domain, there are some audit domain. So within one big domain, so finance organization will have their own domain in which their people talk. Okay, I think I'll go ahead.
Can you
So
implement?
how do we handle transactions in microservice architecture?
That we will discuss in upcoming slide. That we will discuss in upcoming slide. So I think let's move ahead. We have lots of things to cover. If there is another other question, please feel free to write it. If I am not able to answer it, I will try to answer in email. Okay. So so there is an interesting theory, the scale cube. So this scale cube says that at what point of time our monolithic architecture should be considered as a candidate to break into microservice. Okay. And this concept comes from the art of scalability. So if you see, this is 3 scale cube where x-axis is horizontal duplication, which means we have one application which is deployed on multiple servers. So that is x-axis. So if your monolithic application falls under x-axis, then we don't have to consider that application for microservice. Then there is z-axis. So z-axis is data partitioning. It means we are scaling up our application by splitting up some similar things. Means so we have one application and which can have 10 different flavor. So that is part of z-axis. Y-axis is something which is functional decomposition. So if our application falls under scenario where I have to scale up some specific function of that particular monolithic application, then that thin slice function is good candidate for microservice architecture. So if you're in your application, if you see any scenario where our functional decomposition needs to be scaled up, then that application or that particular feature needs to be considered as a best candidate for microservice. So with all this logic, we are not saying that microservice architecture is anti-pattern. We are good to go with microservice architecture if our organization is small, if we don't have any clear domain. In those scenarios, we are good to go for monolithic. But we have to keep in mind that monolithic will keep growing. And at the point we have our clear domain, we should break that monolithic application to microservice if at all we need scale up into Y dimension. So it is one of the famous saying that microservice is no free lunch, but it is a smart nutrition. So whenever you are thinking about that, okay, this is my application, now I need to break it down to monolithic. Think twice that if you just think so that, okay, now microservice is in, lot of talk, we should break it, then don't break it unless you actually require it. So the requirement is scaling should be needed, your application is too large, or reusability is required. For your organization, innovation and speed are vital. If these all criteria suits, then go for breaking your monolithic to microservices. Then last is, but not for old and ugly code. If your code is not very old and very ugly, then you can't break it, then you have to rewrite it. Okay, so these are some of the things which we have to consider before breaking our monolithic into microservices. So how we can start breaking our monolithic to microservice? So there are 3 different ways. So first is cut, copy, or re-implement. So if your code is well refactored, we can take some part of code which is nicely written, create a new microservice, test parallel, and you can just replace the existing one and start using new microservice. Second one is refactor monolithic. So this approach I have never seen actually getting used, but this will be used when you have very legacy code with you. So in that concept, first you have to identify the bounded context, then refactor your monolithic first, then refactor your monolithic to microservice. So this is what when our code is too ugly and too old. And then incremental rewrite. This is one of the mostly used approach where we identify the responsibility of new microservice and re-implement clean functionality. And with incremental rewrite, we also get advantage that we can change the technology and we can have clean code, new implementation of the code. But to start with microservice, we always have to take baby step. We don't have to go like a big bang approach. So this is how we can start for breaking our monolithic to microservice. So there are different strategies which we can use or different patterns. So first pattern is a strangler pattern. So this pattern I will try to describe from this picture. So this pattern was very first identified by Martin Fowler from this tree itself. So if you see, this is a big old tree. So this big old tree is nothing but our big monolithic service. The small roots coming out from tree, these are the thin slices which we have identified to create a new microservices. Now these thin roots will go down and will create a new tree. And once these all roots are becoming tree, slowly it will eat up the existing tree, hosting tree. So in same fashion, the strangler fig pattern works, that we have to break our monolithic application into small microservice, and slowly we have to gradually decrease our monolithic size, increase our number of microservices. So this is very useful when we have some application which have interceptors. So if incoming request we can intercept, then only strangler fig pattern can work. So let's see example. So if you see in this image, we have a big monolithic application. This is existing state. So before So early stage, when we are going to just start, first what we do, we introduce a dispatcher proxy. So what this proxy will do, as we mentioned that to use a strangler pattern, we should have a interceptor. So now this dispatcher proxy will intercept the request from monolithic to microservice for whichever microservice feature we have identified. Okay. And gradually we will increase number of microservices, and we can add some new microservices as well. And our monolithic application size will start shrinking. And at the end, we will have no more monolithic services. We have all new microservices. And now we don't need dispatcher proxy as well, because we don't need to have any interceptor. But we have to take care of one thing, that whichever service or whichever feature we want to take out of monolithic service, that feature behavior should not be changed. I mean, still there is some team which is working on our monolithic application, because that monolithic application has huge surface, right? But whichever thin slice we are picking to extract, that thin slice should not be in development mode. So what benefit we are getting out of it, that slowly our monolithic application is shrinking, and it is very much useful when we have some black box system. So if any third party software we are using, it is very easy to intercept those requests and create a new microservice. So this is what is strangler proxy, strangler fig pattern. So next is branch by abstraction pattern. So in this pattern, we have, so if you see now, there might be some of features which are not, which we can't intercept from our inbound request. So if you see this is one example of inventory management, where we have invoicing and payroll. And after invoicing, we are sending some user notification. And this user notification is in very deep of our application, and we can't intercept it from our inbound calls. So if we want to make such services, or we want to extract these user notification as a microservice, then it is a good candidate for branch by abstraction. So to extract it, there are 5 steps. First, we have to create the abstraction for user notification, and then use that abstraction for user notification. Then implement new service, switch the implementation, clean up. So let's see that in next slide how it works. So this is the same example where we have invoicing and payroll. This is our existing user notification. Now we have added one layer of abstraction here. Okay, and this abstraction is implemented by our existing functionality. Parallelly, so this is step 1 and 2. In step 3, we have created a new microservice. So this is user notification microservice, which is implemented by, again, user notification abstraction. But currently this is not active. Once implementation is done, so it's arts-wise that we can make probably both implementation active, or one inactive, one active. So this can be controlled by feature flag or any other strategy, whichever you want. And in the same pattern, if you want to get rid of existing notification functionality, we can just remove it. Or there might be some scenario where, like, out of 10 clients, my 4 clients still going with existing functionality, and out of 10, 6 clients are going for new functionality. So in that case also, we can do the implementation. So this is how our branch by abstraction pattern works. So next is parallel run pattern. So this is not new, actually this is a pretty old pattern. And this pattern we normally use whenever we have risk of switching existing implementation, or whichever functionality we are trying to extract are high risk. So basically I can say all the functionality wherever money is or cost is something important. So those kind of functionality we can't extract directly, because whenever we are trying to extract, whatever testing we have done, there is still possibility to having some bugs or some misses by default, in fact. So, or by mistake, we might have introduced some new bugs. So to avoid such scenario, we do parallel run. So in parallel run, our old system will still be running. Our new system will be also running. It will take data from production. It will create results, but it is not going to create results in the production database. It will create results in Excel or some other format, and we will have some batch process or any intelligence tool which will compare both results. So this implementation is pretty much important when we have risk that there should be no difference when we do implementation or we switch to new implementation. So for example, if we have some payment system, so payment system is high risk functionality, right? So if you want to migrate such functionality into new microservice architecture, then along with Strangler or branch by abstraction, we also do parallel run. So to make sure that there is no difference, and once we are done with all the testing for given point of time, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, or whatever is the suitable time frame, then only we should switch the system from old system to new system. So I will take a pause here. Do we have any questions?
We have one in chat.
Yeah. Do you mean different bounded context under same domain? So in same domain, actually we have subdomain as well, right? So Milind, this is something that on architectural level we decide that how we want to communicate into same domain or other domain. So in some teams, if we want to communicate into same domain, we can directly call service to service communication, so like REST API. However, in some architecture, I mean, this typically depend upon which kind of domain we are working on. And in some scenario, you will see that even if we are in same domain, we are not allowed to communicate because there might be some high risk transaction or something like that. So in that way, we have some service discovery in place, which will help us to communicate from one domain to other domain. And then can you put more light on performance comparison between monolithic versus microservices? Also put more focus on cost of protocol communication. Monolithic have low cost of intermodal communication while microservices are very chatty. Yes, so if we talk about performance, so in performance wise, in monolithic, when we are doing service to service communication, we will get good performance because we don't have network hop or service hop. However, in microservices, we will get some hops and there might be some delay, but we have to trade off that that actually what we were trying to achieve. So it's really dependent what under what scenario we are trying to break our monolithic into microservices. And additionally, how many hops we are adding, that is also important. Okay. Okay.
Hi, Priya.
Yeah, hi.
The first pattern, Strangler Flick pattern you were talking
Yes.
about.
Yes.
This dispatcher proxy, I mean, I'm not so clear about it. Can you repeat it?
So this can be any kind of proxy. So Nginx proxy or any kind of proxy you can add here. So for example, okay. So let's suppose there was a login module. And now from monolithic application, I have extracted that login module into my different microservice. So now microservice is deployed on some other network or some other server at least, right?
Yeah.
But incoming request is still coming to monolithic application. So in proxy, what we can give that from what request is coming in and to which URL we can route that request to.
Okay. Okay.
That mapping we can do into dispatcher proxy.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So any more questions? We can go ahead. Okay. So this is about that how we can break our backend code to microservice architecture. So there are also some patterns to break our UI into microservices. So for UI, I'll just touch on high level. So I'm not going to go deep down into UI part because this is topic for another day. So this is UI composition strategy where we have one monolithic UI which is taking data from n number of microservices. So what we can do, so our big monolithic UI can be break into multiple microservices UI, which now will take data from different microservices. So it can be some visit pattern or some single page pattern, or it might be that in same page there are 5 different microservices from which UI is coming up and getting merged. So there are some different strategy to do it, but today we are not going to cover it. I'll just give a high level view that it is also achievable. So next is decomposing database. So now we have broke our backend code to different microservices, but still we are using same database, right? So we have to decompose our database as well. So there are different strategy to do that. So first is shared database. So let's first try to understand that when I have broke my code into multiple microservices, what is the issue by using same database? Okay. So this is dispatch, finance, and order processing, 3 different kind of microservices, which is using same database, right? So first issue, what we can see here, that all the services can see data of each other, right? So it is like dispatch service doesn't know what's its own data and what is data which it should be taking from finance, because it has access to whole database. So database is completely shared, nothing is hidden. Now, if there is some third party data, ideally we should not be knowing, but now because we have our schema in control, we know everything. There is development time coupling. When I'm saying development time coupling, it means consider there is one table where finance service want to add some column. And on the same table, dispatch system want to update some data type. So now dispatch team and finance team need to sync before doing anything on any changes on the same table. Otherwise, it will impact all 3 services. So this is what is development time coupling. Then there is runtime coupling. So runtime coupling, consider example same, like we have one table which is logged by order processing to process its order. Now dispatch service is trying to fetch the order which needs to be dispatched from the same table, but that table is logged by order processing service. So now this is runtime coupling which we have introduced in shared database. So that's why it is not advisable to use shared database in microservice architecture. So the first way to get rid of shared databases, we can have database views, right? So we can take all the data from database, whichever is required by all the external system. We can make all the public schema views, and now all the systems can read. So that runtime coupling is now resolved, right? Because everyone can read from view and views are already cached. So now there is no issue with that. But views itself have some constraint, like views are read only. So still for update, we have to directly connect to our database and update on that. And all the external system can be updating on same table. So again, we can have runtime coupling. Then single point of failure. So if at all due to any reason our pricing system is database is down, all external system will be impacted. Then our microservice architecture will be, the intent of microservice architecture will be lost because there is single failure in our system. So that's why we should not go for database view. If at all you find that you are unable to decompose your database completely, then we should again look into our domain or business context. It means we have not ideally defined what is business context, or the definition of our domain is not clear. Otherwise, as per domain definition, we should be able to segregate it. So third approach is database wrapping system. So this database wrapping system says we can create a new service around our database. So that will act as a thin wrapper. So now we can move our dependency from database to our service. So for example, we have this entitlement and apps data database, and this database was connected by one monolithic application, which was now break down to application A, application B, and application C. So initially all three services were connected to same database. But entitlements is something which is, I mean, not related to ABC, it is across all the applications. So what we can do, first we can create an entitlement service which will actually give us all the data related to entitlements. Call related to entitlements should be moved to entitlement service. So now app A, app B, and app C, if they need any kind of entitlement data, they should be asking to entitlement service, not to entitlement app data. Then once we have our entitlement service, we can now segregate app ADB, app BDB, and app CDB. So now this central database, which was one single point of failure, now it is working as its service, and now app A has its own database. So only for entitlement it is going to communicate to entitlement service. Other than that, it is completely isolated. And now doing any kind of testing with app A and app A database, if they need any kind of data from entitlement service, they can stub and do the testing. So this is what is database wrapping service pattern. So normally this pattern you will see where you have some kind of static data or some kind of master data you require. So in those kind of pattern, we can have database wrapping system. And next is database per service. So this is mostly used pattern in database, I would say. So in this strategy, what we do, we will have a database for each service. So for order service, there will be order service database, which will have all the details related to order. And for customer, there will be customer database, which have all the customer related tables. So this can be achieved into different ways. So we can have same database with private table, same database, different schema, or altogether different database. And this strategy also gives us the benefit to choose different kind of database to their different microservice. So each microservice team can choose their interest of database. I mean, if someone want to use MongoDB, someone want to use SQL, whichever database they think they can choose. But so now this service is loosely coupled and we can choose our own database. But with this strategy as well, we have some of the challenges. So like transaction management is something which is not very straightforward in database per service. So consider in this example, we have order table where we have ID, customer ID, status, and total. And we have customer table, we have ID and credit limit. Now customer want to place some order. So while placing order, we need to check what is limit of customer. And that limit lies into customer database, not in order database. So if that is in single database, we would have joined it, but it is not in same database. So that we have to take care that how we want to extract the data from other database. Okay, so that is challenge into this particular strategy. And distribution transaction. So these kind of transactions should be avoided if possible, because we have to maintain CAP theorem. So I'll just give a gist of CAP theorem. So CAP is consistency, availability, and partition tolerance theorem. So in distribution transaction, we cannot achieve all three, but at least we should be able to achieve two of them. So if you see RDBMS or Oracle MySQL, if we are using these kind of database, we will be able to achieve consistency and availability. If we are using Mongo, Redis, then we should be able to achieve consistency and partition tolerance. If we are using Cassandra or Amazon, we can achieve availability and partition tolerance. So this is one of the challenge into database strategy pattern. And to handle this, we have Saga pattern, API composition, and CQRS segregation pattern. So these patterns are implementation of database per service. So these are the strategy through which we can decompose our database. So I'll take a pause here if you have anything. Okay. So I think there is no question then. Then I'll move ahead. So let's see one of the example that which are the companies which are using microservices right now. So if you see Netflix, Amazon, eBay, Uber, Twitter, PayPal, Spotify, The Guardian, LinkedIn, in fact, all the big organizations, if you see Citibank, Morgan Stanley, JP, most of them are using microservices architecture. Whoever had their defined domain or whoever want to go on cloud services, they are using microservices architecture. So I'll just explain a journey of Netflix, because Netflix is one of the best example of implementing microservice architecture. Even when microservice architecture itself was not, I would not say it was not known, it was not very popular. At that time only Netflix achieved it, and very beautifully actually it has achieved microservice architecture. So around I think 2008 or 9, they have millions of subscribers. But so if you know, Netflix was a company who started with movie rental. So they were renting DVD initially, and then gradually they moved to online streaming. So if you see, when they started their journey, they were movie rental, they were in movie rental business. But at the end, as time goes, your requirements matures, your domain matures, and hold together their business is now on online streaming. So that's why we say that when when we are a startup or we are not very big organization, our domain is not defined, go for monolithic application. And the same fashion, Netflix started their application in monolithic. But when demand came, they realized that they need to scale up. And for scaling up, they took help of Amazon, and they wanted to go on Amazon. And at that point of time, they realized that with monolithic architecture, it is very difficult to scale up, and they started breaking up their application. So they broke their application in almost 500 plus microservice, and it took more than 2 years for them to completely migrate from monolithic to microservice. And for any organization, breaking monolithic to microservice or your journey from monolithic to microservice is not smooth. There will be lots of glitches, because when we are breaking our monolithic to microservice, whatever testing we do, sometimes we have some resource issue. Sometimes, though we have done all the testing, but you know, we always get some kind of issue in production, always. So those time of phases came with Netflix as well. And during their journey, they created lots of tool, which later on they gave to open source. So it is the Netflix OSS, if you see. So they have their service discovery. They also introduced Chaos. So there are lots of things which Netflix did while they're in their journey. And now they have 193 million subscribers, and I believe most of us is also using Netflix, at least in COVID time. So we know how much we are using it and how smooth it is. So just to give you a gist, let's see their architecture. So this is their architecture. They have 500 plus microservices. If you see, this is their these many applications they have, and how they are connected to each other using API gateway. And now they have over 2 billion API edge request calls daily, which they are handling with microservice architecture. So with microservice architecture, this is what we can achieve. And for more, you can always refer the resources. So there is one site, microservices.io. So this is very beautifully written site, and there are lots of patterns and all which you can see here. Martin Fowler article and InfoQ. In InfoQ, there are lots of article about monolithic microservices, and there are lots of examples like GitHub also in 2008, I think they moved their application from monolithic to microservices. So those all audio and presentations are available in the site. So those are some good reference. And this O'Reilly book, Building Microservices and Monolithic to Microservices by Sam Newman. So these are the two books where I found most of the content here. Obviously all the strategies are available, implementation we have to look into. And if at all you are working with legacy code, then this book is something which will help you out, of Robert C. Martin, working effectively with legacy code. So this is it from my side. Thank you. If there is any question.
Okay. If we don't have any questions, we can close. Okay.
I
Yeah,
had
Sonal.
one. Yeah. go ahead.
Hello. Yes, sorry, I have this quick question here, and this is mainly for the first slide, I think. So there we defined it as it should have like there should be multiple source code repositories, right? So I mean, for monolith, it was defined as having single source code repository, right?
Yes.
There we can we can understand that we need like multiple build services or let's say instances of applications, but for a microservice it can have, right, a single source code where that source code can have multiple build systems and generating multiple instances of applications, running instances, right?
Sorry, I didn't got your question. So you are saying we have single repository in our monolithic, and in
Right,
microservices
right.
we have single repository and multiple microservices within the same repository, and we can deploy it as per the configuration. Am I right?
Right. So we can have single repository and build time. We can have multiple build instances where, let's say, I mean, this is a quick easy example where I create a big application, a web application where it serves many APIs. Now, I for scaling purpose, I kind of like let's say segregate or they classify, okay, these are the APIs I can deploy it in as a separate microservice and scale them differently in, let's say, Docker or anywhere other than like this.
Mhm.
So is this like a generally accepted pattern, uh, or you must have that separate code repositories?
So normally, as I will share my experience. So I was working with one other organization where we did the same thing, which you are saying, that in one single repository, we have tons of different applications. Okay. And now whichever we want to deploy, we were configuring as the application name, and as per that, it was taking the deployment and all. But in that pattern, what is drawback, that now team has access to whole repository. So now everyone can do anything on other codes as well. So it is a big risk. So normally it is advisable if you have different microservices, you should have different repository. So on repository wise, you can give access, which is easy to manage.
I had a
Okay,
point to
so
make.
it is just for at the sorry, I mean it is just at the level of allowing developers access to the code, right? Don't they don't want to interfere each other's code, right?
Yes, I mean that's what I
Okay,
know. If there is another reason, I am not aware of.
okay, thank you.
So there is one question that can we have a exam? Can you share an example of beginner level working monolithic app transform to microservice? So actually I don't have readily available, Amitu, but I'll try to create a. So can you ping me personally? I will share some example with you. I mean, I don't have readily available with me, but
Sure. Sure, Priya. Actually, what I'm looking is I'm at the managerial level, but I want to actually see the code. So I am pretty familiar with monolith application and corresponding codes, but I just want to see an example where it's like very rundown structure of monolith app with web services and database and stored procedures and UI as well. And then how we can break down all of this and put together a microservice architecture behind the scene. So any blog article would also be helpful. I'll also ping you in private.
Yeah, I will try to find out something and will get back to you.
Sure, I'm not sure how to do it, but I'll just go ahead directly. Priya, right? Okay. All right. I'll just share my information. Thank you.
And Priya, we can also post these resources in Meetup comments so that everybody can look for that in future as well.
Okay, sure. Then I'll publish there. And there is one question from Sandeep that do you have any resource for referring domain modeling where we start with building project for design? So there is one book, Domain Driven Design. I don't remember I think it is Evans.
Eric Evans.
Eric Evans. It is.
Eric Evans, yeah. So that is one book that you can refer for domain modeling and all. So at the start only we will have to plan with proper. So as I said that at the start of your application, if your domain is clear, then you can go for microservice architecture, not an option. And not any doubt, but if your domain is not clear, then you should not go ahead with microservice architecture. Would you like to share some details on circuit breaker or Netflix Hystrix library? So probably I will share some of the documents which you can go through for Netflix in details.
Okay. If we don't have any further questions, so we'll be uploading today's recording to YouTube and we'll put the link on Meetup.